Hello, everyone, and welcome to Our American Government, presented once again by me, Mr. Samuelson. Today, we are going to be going over the sovereign state and what it takes to actually call yourself a state. So, what is a state? Well, the official definition might not be what Americans think it is. Our states are not always quite states. Michigan, for example, is not a state in the strictest meaning of the term. Yeah, no, sorry. Not a state. States have to have four things. They have to have population, that is a group of people. Territory, that is a space that is defined and understood. They have to have sovereignty, which is the power to make and enforce their own laws without having to check with somebody else. And they have to have government, which is an organization that can do all of that. If you don't have that, we're not a state. So let's go into population, dig that one out a little bit more. So in order to be a state, you must have a permanent human population. That is, all the time people are there. We need you. We need people. Now, a state with a small population is still a state. Take, for example, Vatican City with 860 people as their official population back in 2000. Still a state. Doesn't matter that they only have 860. And we have here a whole list of states that have populations that are very small, much smaller than Oakland County. Now, Antarctica is an example of a non-state. Antarctica isn't a state because it has no permanent population. The people, the creatures, the beings that live there on a permanent basis aren't human. We're talking penguins and seals. The humans that are there, they don't call Antarctica their home. They come from different countries, and they may wind up being in Antarctica for an extended period of time, but it's still not their home. So Antarctica is not a state. Territory. All right, so what else? Every state must have land, which is recognized generally as belonging to them. Your little piece of the puzzle, and it belongs to you. Now, Vatican City, which we saw in population, is also the smallest in terms of territory. It's smaller than 1 square mile. If we can take a look here at our key, we can see that that's about 1/3 of a mile. So we're looking at something that's a little bit more than a half a mile wide, a little bit less than a half a mile tall. The Vatican City is very small and yet is still a state. What isn't a state is a religion. Religion like Catholicism cannot be a state. It has government, it has people, it has all these other things, but it doesn't have land that it considers a part of its own country. All right, sovereignty. Sovereignty is when a government is free from outside control. If nobody else controls them, if nobody else has a say over what they do, they are sovereign. So the United States, for example, is sovereign because we don't have to follow this King George III's laws anymore. Yeah, you might think that America's not sovereign there, King George, but sorry to break it to you, we declared independence from you and we're sovereign now. So yeah, you're going to have to deal with that. Now, Michigan, on the other hand, Michigan is not a state in this sense because we have to follow U.S. laws. Michigan, you might think you're a state. We call you the state of Michigan, but guess what? You're not really a state. Sorry, the United States is sovereign. Michigan is not. Government. All states must have the ability to create and enforce their public policy. Now, anybody can create public policy. I could sit here and create public policy, but the enforcement part is key. Now, different states enforce their policy and create their policy in different ways. We have monarchies, dictatorships, oligarchies, juntas, democracies. We're going to get into all of this, but these are all different ways of governing your nation. Now, Afghanistan today could be considered by some to be what's called a failed state. That is something that was close or was at one point a state, but it isn't a state anymore because it doesn't have this functioning government requirement. The government has to be able to enforce public policy and enforce it across the nation. And over here, we can see all of this area in red within Afghanistan is not controlled by the government. they can't enforce their laws there. And therefore, Afghanistan either is or seems as though it might be on its way to being a failed state. All right, well, that was all for our American government today. I certainly hope that you learned something, and I will see you next time. Farewell.